Damascus, Syria, the 14th day of September, 1260. The stone floor of the citadel's underground chamber gleams wet in lamplight, not from water. A woman kneels in the center of the room, hands bound behind her back with silk cord. The silk is a deliberate choice. It leaves no marks. Her name is Catherine of Acre, 23 years old, daughter of a Frankish merchant who made the mistake of believing his trading contracts would protect his family when the Mamluk armies arrived at the city gates 3 months earlier. She is not alone. 17 other women line the walls, standing with their backs pressed against cold limestone. They range in age from 14 to 42, all Christian, all captured during the same campaign, all waiting to discover which of the 3 doors in this chamber they will be taken through. Each door leads to a different fate. The women do not yet know what those fates are, but they have learned enough in the past 90 days to understand that the Mamluks approach human acquisition with the same systematic precision they apply to military conquest. A man enters through the center door. He carries no weapons. He wears the simple robe of a royal steward, but the deference shown to him by the guards reveals his true authority. His name is Amir Tashtamur, and his role within Sultan Baybar's administration is one that most histories prefer to forget. He oversees the integration of captured populations into the Mamluk economic and social structure. Integration is the word used in official documents. The reality contains layers of calculation that would take hours to fully comprehend. Tashtamur walks past Catherine without looking at her. He stops in front of a younger woman, perhaps 16, with the distinctive features that mark her as Armenian rather than Frankish. He speaks to her in Arabic. She does not understand. He repeats himself in Armenian. Her face drains of color. She shakes her head. He nods to a guard, who takes her arm and leads her toward the left door. The door opens. Through it, Catherine glimpses a courtyard, where dozens of women sit in rows, heads bowed, while other men in official robes examine them with the practiced efficiency of livestock merchants evaluating breeding stock. The door closes. Tashtamur continues down the line. His selections follow patterns that become clear to Catherine as she watches. Age matters. Origin matters. Physical condition matters most of all. But there is something else he evaluates, something less tangible. He asks each woman a question in her native language. The question varies, but the underlying test remains constant. He is measuring their capacity for transformation. The Mamluks built an empire on transformation. They themselves were transformed from enslaved boys into the most formidable military force of their era. They understand, with ruthless clarity, that human beings can be systematically reshaped given the right combination of time, technique, and total control over environment. What they did to captured women was not random violence. It was engineered conversion, the deliberate destruction and reconstruction of identity according to precise specifications that served economic, political, and social functions within their expanding state. Tonight, you will discover what that systematic transformation involved. The specific procedures, the calculated time frames, the infrastructure built to process thousands of women annually, the psychological techniques that broke resistance without leaving visible damage, the markets that distributed human beings across 3 continents, the detailed records that tracked every transaction, and the individual stories of women whose names survived in sources that official histories tried to erase. This is not the sanitized version taught in schools. This is not the romanticized harem fantasy of Orientalist paintings. This is the documented reality of what happened when one of history's most sophisticated military empires applied its organizational genius to the systematic exploitation of captured populations. Before we continue, understand that what follows is disturbing. It is meant to be. These women existed. Their suffering was real. Their stories deserve to be told without the comfortable distance that centuries provide. If you want the truth about medieval power, conquest, and what systematic oppression actually looked like when implemented by brilliant administrators, you need to hear this. Hit the subscribe button to support a fellow history enthusiast, and drop a comment with your location. I'm genuinely curious to see how far these stories reach. Now, let us return to that chamber beneath the Damascus citadel and discover what happened when Emir Tashtamur finally stopped in front of Catherine of Acre. To understand what Catherine faced, you must first grasp the nature of the Mamluk state itself. The Mamluks were not born to power. They purchased it. Every sultan, every emir, every commander who shaped the medieval Middle East began life as a slave. Young boys, typically captured from Turkic tribes in Central Asia or Circassian communities in the Caucasus, were bought by Egyptian and Syrian rulers and subjected to intensive military and religious training. By their 20s, these former slaves had become elite warriors. By their 30s, many held positions of command, and when the Ayyubid dynasty collapsed in 1250, it was a Mamluk who seized the throne. This created a paradox at the heart of their society. The ruling class consisted entirely of men who had been enslaved, trained, and transformed into something new. They viewed transformation through bondage not as atrocity, but as proven methodology. If boys could be systematically converted into warriors, then surely captured populations could be systematically converted into whatever the state required. And the state required much. The Mamluk Sultanate, at its height, controlled Egypt, Syria, Palestine, and Western Arabia. It defended Islam against Mongol invasion from the east and Crusader encroachment from the west. It managed the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. It dominated Mediterranean trade. This vast administrative and military apparatus demanded constant replenishment of human resources at every level: soldiers, servants, artisans, laborers, concubines. The systematic acquisition and processing of captured peoples became as essential to Mamluk survival as tax collection or grain storage. The infrastructure they built to manage this would impress modern logisticians. Damascus alone contained 7 major processing centers by the late 13th century. These were not prisons. They were transformation facilities, each designed for specific categories of captives. The citadel complex where Catherine waited held high-value acquisitions, individuals whose background, education, or physical attributes marked them for specialized placement. Other facilities handled volume processing, converting thousands of war captives into the labor force that built roads, maintained irrigation, and staffed the growing cities. The system operated with documented efficiency. Contemporary sources describe standardized procedures, medical examination within 24 hours of arrival, classification based on age, origin, physical condition, and assessed capability, assignment to transformation track, initial processing period of 60 to 90 days, final placement. Records tracked each individual through the system, losses were calculated, productivity was measured. The Mamluks approached human acquisition with the same systematic thinking they applied to military campaigns. But women presented unique considerations. Male captives offered straightforward utility, labor, military service for those deemed suitable, craft work for those with skills. The pathways were clear. Women required more complex calculation. Their value derived from multiple functions simultaneously: reproductive capacity, domestic service, status signaling, economic exchange, and something else. Something that records document but modern sensibilities struggle to process without flinching: cultural erasure as demonstration of conquest. When Mamluk armies took Christian territories, they were not simply acquiring land. They were eliminating rival power structures. Christian communities in Syria, Palestine, and Armenia had maintained distinct identities for centuries. They had their own churches, their own laws, their own marriage, customs. They represented alternative sources of loyalty, potential resistance, future rebellion. The systematic integration of their women into Mamluk households served multiple purposes simultaneously. It removed the next generation of Christians from the population. It demonstrated total victory. It provided tangible reward to soldiers and officers. It generated revenue through slave markets. And it destroyed community cohesion more effectively than any massacre. This was policy, not chaos. Contemporary administrative documents reveal the calculation behind it. Regulations govern the distribution of captives. Officers received first selection based on rank. Common soldiers received assigned shares. The state claimed a fifth of all acquisitions. Local governors could purchase captives at fixed rates. Markets handled surplus. The entire system operated under legal frameworks derived from interpretations of Islamic law regarding prisoners of war and slavery. The women caught in this system faced transformation procedures, refined over decades of practice. The Mamluks had learned from experience what methods worked, how to break resistance without destroying utility, how to erase previous identity while building new compliance, how to maximize economic return while maintaining social control. They had developed techniques that combined psychological manipulation with physical constraint, always calculated to achieve specific outcomes. Catherine of Acre, kneeling on that wet stone floor, was about to experience the culmination of this systematic thinking. When Emir Tashtamor stopped in front of Catherine, he asked his question in Frankish French. His accent was perfect. This detail matters. The Mamluks did not merely conquer, they studied. They learned the languages of their enemies. They understood Christian social structures well enough to exploit them. "Can you read?" he asked. Catherine hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, she made a decision that would determine everything that followed. She could lie, claim ignorance, hope that illiteracy might make her less valuable, might lead to assignment to some less terrible fate than whatever awaited educated captives. But something in Tashtamor's eyes suggested he already knew the answer. Her father had been a merchant. Merchants taught their children to read. Lying would only demonstrate that she lacked judgment. "Yes," she said. "French and Latin, some Arabic." Tashtamor's expression did not change, but something shifted in his posture. He gestured to a guard, who brought a wooden tablet covered in wax. On it, someone had written a sentence in Arabic script. Tashtamor held it toward Catherine. "Read this," he commanded. She studied the words. The script was formal, classical, a line from religious poetry. She read it aloud, slowly, her pronunciation uncertain but comprehensible. Tashtamor took the tablet back. He made a mark on the parchment he carried. Then he moved to the next woman without another word. Catherine did not know it yet, but she had just been selected for the right door. Not the left, which led to the processing courtyard and eventual distribution to military households as domestic servants. Not the center, which led to immediate sale in the Damascus slave market. The right door led to something else entirely, a transformation track reserved for a specific category of captive. Women who possessed education, linguistic ability, or other skills that made them suitable for placement in administrative households. This sounds almost merciful until you understand what administrative household placement actually meant. 3 days later, Catherine was taken through that right door. She found herself in a different kind of chamber, smaller than the first, its walls covered with carpets that muffled sound. 5 other women waited there, all selected by the same criteria, all educated, all multilingual, all young enough to be malleable. An older woman entered. Her name was Sophia, and she had once been exactly where Catherine now stood.